John from Ripewave Audio with another video within our Why to Buy series, and this time it's the Monoprice Monolith HTP-1. This unit sells just under $4,000 and is purchased directly from Monoprice within their Monolith sub-brand. And we have covered the HTP-1 at the end of last year with a series that started out with 2 videos just focused on the HTP-1, and then we did a compare when we had also in-house at the same time the Arcam AV41 as well as the Emotiva RMC 1, which of course is a permanent edition of the Ripewave Audio Theater here. Of course, those videos went into a lot of details as far as all the features that it has and what it entailed to set this up and how it compared with each other. With this video, we're going to be a little more focused and cover what type of buyer would be interested in the HTP-1 for their home theater. And I think this unit has a lot to offer to the right individual. Let's take a look at this a little more deeper. Of course, you have those other videos to fall back on, which has those details. But once over lightly, this 16-channel processor, and of course the other units that we looked at in those prior series were also processor only. This is the only AV processor that Monoprice offers in their portfolio, and they do not have a AV receiver in their portfolio with amplifiers built in. Of course, they make their own amplifier separate, so if you are going down this route and you need amplifiers, Monoprice does have those as well. And of course, this will work with other amplifiers. We used our Emotiva amplifiers with this and it worked just fine. The HTP-1 was introduced in 2020 and has largely been unchanged, aside from some firmware updates since then. And here we are coming on the 4th year of the HTP-1. The front of the unit is pretty simple. It has its display. It has a single input selection button as well as the power button on this unit. And turning around the back as a processor, and we're glad to see this is entirely balanced outputs on this. And if you are one that has a lot of analog inputs, this may not be the best selection for you because it only gives you a couple and there's no phono input on the HTP-1, but it gives you a lot of HDMI inputs. That's 8 of them, so it's among the highest count that we see on a processor or a receiver. It has, of course, some digital inputs, coax and Toslink optical on there. There's a 2-channel mixdown on the back of this, as well as 4 trigger outputs on the unit. We see the antenna here that is there for Bluetooth and wireless capabilities. Looking inside of the unit, we can see that this is a small package processor. Not much inside of it, a few boards, some ribbon cable. Obviously no room for a toroidal power supply in this chassis, and it does not have one like the Anthem or the Arcam products have for their processor separates. Those purchasing an AV processor separate usually put sound quality as one of their highest criteria. And when we additioned the HTP-1 in-house here against the other models that we brought in, and we brought in over 14 different products for auditioning, we found this was in the top tier. As we've said before, selecting a receiver or processor within the same tier, you're better to focus on the features and what's right for you, because you can compensate for those sound differences just by spending more energy on the room calibration and careful calibration and setup of the unit than would it be to pick something that was a compromise to you on features and just because you thought it was going to sound a little better. I don't think that's worth it. With this being in the top tier, I don't think you have anything to worry about for sound quality with the Monoprice HTP-1. And that was something we were concerned about. With this being so light and so small, could it possibly sound as good as something that was bigger and heavier? The answer is yes, it can sound as good, and better in some cases versus some of those lower tier products that are heavier. Of course, the sound quality can be influenced by the DACs that is used. This particular product uses an AKM 4493 EQ chip, which has decent signal-to-noise output in itself at 123 decibels, with a THD of -115. But it's the specified output that the manufacturer has that we pay more attention to at 116 dBs, -106 dBs on the total harmonic distortion. This is very decent. And so I think this is respectable, and it contributes to why I think this landed in the top tier for sound quality with those good output specifications against its peers. As a 16-channel unit, you have a lot of flexibility in your speaker layouts, and this unit lets you configure anywhere between a 9.1.6, that's with front wides and 3 rows of heights, to a 9.5.2, maximizing the subwoofer count at 5 with the expense of cutting down on your height channels down to 2, or getting rid of those front wides. So flexible on those channel counts. And we can see amongst these peers, most of them do support front wides to some extent, and a lot of them will support up to 2 or 3 rows of heights. But having that capability to do up to 5 subwoofers is really only seen on the Arcam product. Using 5 subwoofers is pretty unique out there. Of course, Denon Marantz now do 4 channels of subwoofer. When you're doing the Anthem AVM90, you get 4, but if you go down to the Anthem AVM70, you're just down to 2 channels of subwoofers. So if you do have high subwoofer counts, the Arcam, the Denon Marantz, and the Monoprice are going to give you the most capability of doing independent subwoofer control. The Emotiva RMC one only supports up to 3 with its current hardware. We compare this against the peers. Everything has Dolby Atmos and DTS-X, but this unit also supports Aural 3D, just not DTS-X Pro, despite there a lot of talk by Monoprice of introducing Pro. In fact, they say that they have it in development for over a year and that they only have some UI issues to work out, but I don't see anything public on their website or the literature as of today that says that Pro is being supported. They have something that compensates for that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. This supports Dirac Live, which is one of the most popular room calibration systems. It also supports Dirac Live bass control features, either single or multi-sub, at the standard upgrade pricing that Dirac sets for that of $350 or $500 for the multi-sub module. It does not support IMAX Enhance, and that's one of the features that it was missing. I think one of the most compelling reasons that you'll notice right off the bat is the large front display. And this is something we're starting to see on products from Anthem through Arcam, but not a lot of the traditional brands. Traditional brands have stuck to a 2-line dot matrix display, and we're so glad to see these larger displays come forward so you can see them across the room if you happen to have this unit in eye shot where you sit and listen to the music. And I think that Monoprice has one of the nicest implementations of a large front display. We'll talk about those details. The other way you interface with this product is with the web pages for configuration and playback, which can be used on a tablet or a mobile device, as well as a PC or Mac computer. When you look at that large front display, and this is why we like it, you see a lot of clear information that is readable. The active input, what the source information is, what's coming into the unit, what the volume is, if you're going to be doing upmixing or taking that sound straight. I think their clarity on their terms using they're not using the term direct mode. They're just saying upmix is turned off. And now you know it's going more direct. And whether you have a special listening mode, is your Dirac room correction turned on, is loudness turned on, is dialogue enhancement turned on. You see the IP address, the wireless address, and you have a button for the Wi-Fi setup. And this is one of those buttons that is on the touchscreen. The touchscreen is not that great, but they do have that for the Wi-Fi setup. Get you going. And of course, the listening format on the other side of the screen from the source. So you see the source and you see the listening, and now you've got a clear picture what's coming in and what's going out. Nice job. I don't see this level of clarity on any other product. This gets the winner for that front panel display. Now, if you bring up the home page for your web interface, you're presented with this screen, which looks very much like the touch panel that's on the front of the unit. As before, you've got some of the same repeat information. I'm not going to read through these, but you do also have that volume adjust that is on that page to turn that volume up and down. But all those similar information is there, as well as a config button and a help button that will take you to other menu pages. And when you do hit that config button, now you're presented with those detailed options of setting up your speakers and doing your calibration and setting EQ, etc. And I think they've done a nice job here. Unlike other web implementations that we've seen, like Arcam, which is really more text-based, you do still have this graphical representation of the speakers. Maybe not as glossy as what you'd have on a Denon or Marantz, but still very nice, and it gets to the point, and it makes it really clear what speakers that have been configured. The other thing I really like is the mapping of how you've configured the speakers. Now, when you turn around a unit, and it's naturally going to have the default labels. They can't make it flexible and change those labels as you reconfigure them for assignable outputs. But what they'll do here is they'll show you which speaker type has been configured to what physical output on the back of this. And this is where something like an Arcam falls down, and they drop those configurations on that summary, and they just go to a numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So very clear here. One of the features I will point out, and that was the default screens that come built into this, but they did add a feature that they highlighted in release notes for at least the 1.10.1 version, but I think it's been out there since almost 2020, is this ability to create custom web user interfaces. And this has been done. In fact, the manual for the HTP-1 highlights a user on the AVS forum called Pink Soda that has developed a custom web UI for this, which you can go to that forum site, and they give you details on how you can load this up and get it running. So your web UI, and we're looking at here the configuration pages, the standard one here on the left, and then with the Pink Soda custom UI and how they're changing the background colors. Yeah, that's nice, but also the layout. Instead of having your navigation across the top, it's down the left-hand side, and some of the presentation of these channels, etc., are laid out a little more clearly on this. Whoever coded this did an excellent job of thinking through what would be best for an individual. And I captured these. A little shout out to Joe Intel. He did a great video on the HTP-1 this year as well. I invite you to take a look at that. As additionally, he's got the Pink Soda UI loaded in on his video, so I captured this here just to give you a sense. And of course, you can see here the True Target calibration system that he's introducing, also known as Magic Beans, shown on this screen capture. And you can see the note right from the manual here, how they're calling attention to this third-party enhancement that's done. And I think it's great that Monoprice has opened it up and let individuals customize the product and make it better. And they create a little community by doing so. As far as networks and streaming services, yes, it has Ethernet and wireless capabilities. Bluetooth sources can feed into this unit, but we can't output to headphones or wireless speakers with this Bluetooth technology that's in it. They do support Roon. It's Roon ready. That's there. On control, they have Alexa support, but the release notes say it was taken away. I don't know if they've made any enhancements since the last release that I'm aware of, but that I think is disabled, at least for the meantime. But they also have protocols for integration, although they don't really highlight which integration technologies they support, but that capabilities in the product through Ethernet, through infrared. And it has 4 trigger outputs. We'd like to see a lot of trigger outputs on a processor specifically, because that means you have a lot of amps, and if you have a lot of subwoofers, you want those all to be triggered to turn on with the unit. Physical dimensions, we highlighted this a little earlier. This is a small unit. It's one of the smallest processors, or even compared to receivers, really small and very light at 18 pounds, 8.2 kilograms on this. It has a 5-year warranty. We don't see manufacturer warranties over 5 years, so they're kind of at the maximum. We do see some units only being 1 or 3 years. In this particular slide, there's nothing less than 3. And this is assembled in the United States, and it is a unit that is produced by ATI, which is a reputable company that had its history in amplifiers, but of course is also doing this processor for Monoprice. We talked about being able to support a 16-channel speaker layout, and if we go back to that other video, you can see how you can do all this mapping. We won't get into those details here. There are some restrictions of having to have the side surrounds on to use some of the other channels like rear surrounds and front wides. They have a feature called Bass Manager, and that Bass Manager lets you direct those bass, whether it's going to go out that speaker or it's going to be directed to the LFE, or it's going to be some combination of the two, and how that's going to interact with your direct. So having that control over your bass is a nice highlight in here. They have something they call wide synth. So if your content doesn't have front wide content in there, and a lot of Atmos tracks do not have that, which Atmos being the most popular movie format today for immersive channels, this will simulate and bring those out to your front wide speakers. So it's going to make more use of your front wides than other processors and receivers out there. So the fact that this does not have DTS:X Pro, it's compensated with this wide synth capability. And Aural 3D is not going to have front wides. It's not part of their specification, but this mode adds it in. They'll also simulate on an Aural 3D a top middle or center height speaker. If you have those stereo heights or the stereo middle ceiling speakers, it will synthesize a phantom center to bring that Aural 3D experience to you, albeit not with a discrete dedicated output for those. If you want that, then you have to move something like an Arcam or a Denon Marantz that really supports a true top center voice of God or a true center height speaker. But this will simulate it. And for most of us who don't have those custom speaker layouts, it's going to work just fine. There's loudness compensation in this unit. Not only does it have loudness compensation, it gives you the ability to configure some of that, which is really nice. And here we can see the standard layouts in white, but then the pink soda version is there in black as well, just to give you another hint of how that UI can change around. I think this is nice. You can visually see how your loudness is going to be applied after changing some of these parameters. You also have some control on your output, how much of that up to 2-volt RMS output you're going to put out there, so you can match it better with your external amplifiers. The default level is 1.6 volts. You also have a manual parametric equalizer with 16 bands. And this is really nice, and it'll allow you to make some custom configurations. If you're using something, I think like Magic Beans, I think this is going to be useful in bringing in those custom filters. And you can do low and high shelf filters, etc., with this manual PEQ if you don't want to use Dirac Live by itself. External tools are supported, so taking that custom capabilities a step further, not only do you have that custom web UI, but you have these custom tools, and they mention some of these in the manual, like the BEQ Designer and the Multi-Sub Optimizer software. But it does have Dirac Live built into this that comes standard. You can measure at 9, 13, or 17 positions. It's full range. The other thing that's really nice is they support up to 6 filters. And this gives you more capabilities than some other units. Like on the Arcam, you're limited to 3. Of course, you can pay. We talked about this for the bass control options. This does run from a computer only, so you will need a computer to run your Dirac Live. But there's different configurable modes. So you can decide if you're going to let Dirac do everything, we're going to run this in a bypass mode where you're going to use the HTP-1 for bass management, or you just turn Dirac Live off completely and it will use the HTP-1 bass management and user trims. And so that flexibility to turn those on and off at will is really nice. This does not come with a microphone that I can recall, so you'd have to purchase a UMIC 1 to work with Dirac. I think this is a good one to finish up this video with, and we can see here that Monoprice, that user experience, I think is really good. Although if you really like on-screen display, that's one minus that it has. You're not going to get your on-screen display. This would be for a user that's comfortable using their mobile device, whether that's a phone or a tablet. I think a tablet would be really nice to have in your home theater room to navigate the HTP-1. Some of the best icons and visualization of source versus output that we've seen out there, and that web UI is a good implementation where I think some are just slapping in a web UI just to say they have it. Here, I think, is a very thoughtful design. And then if you can even use something like the Pink Soda versions of a custom UI, you can even take that to another level. The remote is pretty basic. There's no backlight on there. So if backlight's important to you, that could be a concern unless you're using some third-party remote to substitute. The DSD support is not documented. It will play back. We did run a test, and it will play back and it will upmix your DSD, but I don't know how native the support for DSD and Super Audio CDs is. Aural 3D, we can play that back. But keep in mind, you only have that phantom speaker for your top center or center height speaker. If you really want to do those Aural 3D specific speaker layouts, this may not be the unit for you, but you do have that phantom simulation for content that you might have for Aural 3D. Will dial in those channels and give you that illusion that you actually do have those physical speakers. We didn't experience any hums or pops or quirks, so I think they've worked out any bugs that they may have had, which was that reboot issue. That seems to be gone. So very good on the robustness on it working. Dirac support, very good with the 6 filters. Dirac Art, they say it's coming. They said it was coming last October. Anyhow, it's off of embargo, so Storm isn't the only company that can have it, but I haven't seen it on other brands as of yet. So we'll hang tight to see whether Dirac Art will be coming to this processor. We didn't see any problems running Dirac itself. A lot of unique features, the BEQ support, the 16-band parametric EQ, the loudness adjustment, the wide synth, the center spread capabilities that are in here. We just thought this was really good processor, and out of this group, we thought it was one of the best. So I think there's a lot of good reasons to buy this. If you want to get in and customize your sound and you're a little bit technical, I think this is a great processor. While the HTP-1 is maybe not as appliance-like as a Denon Marantz, I think that it's not too difficult. Somebody that has a little bit of technical knowledge, not a lot, they can get in and make this work. And if you want to take it to the next level, they have some tools in here that are very useful and really isn't that much of a jump in technical know-how to get them to work. So I think it's got a good blend of advanced features that really aren't that hard to use. So I think this is a very good model, and I'd like to hear if this model is right for you. What's your feedback? Is this a compelling product to buy, or are you looking at something else? That feedback would be useful to the Ripewave audio community. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you want to take your involvement to the next level, we do have our Patreon channel at www.patreon.com/Ripewave, or you can hit that thanks button for a one-time donation. It's always appreciated. Of course, it costs nothing to hit that bell notification so you're notified when the next video is posted. Until then, keep evolving your audio experience.